Blog Talk Radio.
Well, hello out there in Radio Land. This is Open Money on Blog Talk Radio, coming to you from the northwest coast of Turtle Island. Hello, Michael. How are things?
Very good, Ernie. Good to be here.
So today we're talking about fundamentals, the fundamentals of money. What does it do? What is it? Where is it from? And we're not going to be talking about banks or interest or usury or the Fed. We're going to focus on money and the fundamentals of money. So, Michael, where would you start with that?
Well, I always like to start from a clear question. What is the question? When we say what is money, we need to be looking at, well, are we asking what it is, what its nature and form is? How does it show up? What does it look like? That's an is question. What is money? We've got to be looking at what does it do, the functional question. What does money affect? Why do we use it? What do we get from it? That sort of issue is another question. And there's also the question, where does it come from? What is the basis of this, its origin? In monetary terms, for instance, who issues this money? That's where it's from. So there's a from question, which is perhaps the baseline causality, the grand overall picture. What the hell do we do with money? And then the answers are, well, we do what we do with it because of what it does. That's the what does money do? And that takes us to the question of, well, what is its form? How do we create, manage, organize a form of money that allows us to do what we do, that comes from us? That's basically the question about money for me.
Well, before we get too far into this, we do welcome callers, and please let us know via the chat line. Presumably you're listening to this live, at the moment anyway, live. It's at 2 p.m. Daylight Time, Pacific Daylight Time, and some of you might hear this on a podcast later. In any case, if you are listening live and you want to join the conversation, ask a question, ask for clarification, pop us a note on the chat line, and we'll bring you in.
And pending that, we will carry on with the conversation. The where is it from? What does it do? What is it? Question about money. Now, a lead to that is the website. And the website that we would send you to is http://openmoney.org/way/diff.html.
And that URL is on the chat line. And we have a guest has joined the chat room, so we will say
expect questions any moment. This is the advantage of an online chat line, is that if you have a burning question, you can just put up the question. It might be something like, what on earth are you people talking about? But it might be something.
And in the absence of a question from out there, what is money?
Well, the first thing it is, I think, is what we know it to in our world. And usually it's flow. It's the stuff that moves. It's we know it by what we do with it. And the key quality of a money is that it moves in a real way. So a monopoly money isn't real money. You can't get rid of it, and you can't get anything for it. But a money in our world is any form of coin, paper, check, card, smart card, phone credit, whatever, that we can use to give to another so that that person feels they've been given some form of value and will give us the loaf of bread or the haircut or the used car. Money is the stuff that releases the action. The real action in the world is, of course, that you give me a haircut, I clean your car, we buy some bread. The bread moves. Things move. Gifts are given by persons to persons. Now, when I say gifts, I mean quite simply, the supermarket gave me a loaf of bread. And somebody gave me a haircut. And I gave somebody my time at the office. Now, of course, the reason those things were given was that we counter-gave $15 for this, or $3 for that, or $200 for the other. My boss gave me $200 for my work. I gave the supermarket $3 for the bread. Somebody gave me $15 for washing their car. That's sort of because there's a flow of a real thing in one direction, and there's this stuff we call money that throughout our economy and our society marks the same event moving in the opposite direction to the physical good or the service or the gift. It's an interesting process because it means there are two patterns, one of reality and or at least of the economic reality, and the other pattern is the money that determines that economic reality.
What you're saying is that the money isn't really real.
Well, I'm saying that there's, in every event, the exchange of something which we would call real, the work, the gift, the loaf of bread. In a counter direction, there is an exchange between the two parties of something which is entirely symbolic and informational. It's a unit of measure. It's a mark of the estimated value the two protagonists in the transaction think it registered. We think this was $3.29 including tax. That's what is paid for the loaf of bread or something. You see? So yes, you have the real thing going one direction, and you have the entirely symbolic or the measurement going in the other. Now money is, for me, the measure. I know people have always considered gold coins to be a really powerful and ultimate form of money, but I think they're a precious metal in an ornamentational style. They're not. What money fundamentally is the promissory process, not the absolute asset that the gold coin contains inside itself. So if somebody gave me gold coins for a haircut, I'd think we'd bartered. I don't think I'd been paid a money.
Well, money in physical terms, that's true. I mean, basically gold and silver are rocks that were dug out of the ground, which means that they're limited.
Well, that was why they were that, and their ductility and their attraction. That made them precious, and it made it easy for people to ascribe large lumps of value into small coins. And that made for transactions to be easily managed. But it was a thing of clear value in itself, the gold coin, exchanged for the items presumed to have value, the livestock, the grain, whatever. So it was a thing for a thing deal. Now, later we got into it's basically state coinage, where the man in charge, and it generally was a man, put his head on a coin and used it as a tax levying system. It became the legal tender for his territory, the money you were supposed to trade in, because he would collect it every year so he could buy things off you with it next. So that money was very clearly money by power. It wasn't money by value in itself. It was money that was effective as a transacting medium because the man with the big club said it was the way you were going to do it.
But there were other forms of money that were being used at the same time that the fat men with heads on coins were used.
Well, there's always been lots and lots of ways in which networks of value exchange can be maintained, perhaps through kinship patterns, perhaps through tribal networks. and the score can be kept in so many ways that don't necessarily need Fort Knox to stack up gold bars and issue paper to cover them or something.
Can you give us some examples of that?
Well, there were stones in certain Polynesian islands were used as a marker of the ritual of the gift exchange and honor between different tribal groups. Big, heavy stones. Took them a hell of a long time to move. It was a family effort. 10 people moved this stone over there. Now we've done that. Thank you. Now you're paid. It was his turn to pay for something. It made for a fairly, muscle-building life. But
they're ceremonial, in effect.
Exactly. They were symbolic. They were markers of. And what they marked, that's, again, determined by the society in which these markers move. But I would say they were money. There were special shells in Britain. There were the tally sticks. That was, you notched a particular stick, in a particular pattern, like almost a fingerprint, 12 notches in the stick, split it, and one served as the receipt and the other one served as the payment, or the record of payment. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, splitting a stick was sufficient to create a unit of account between the people involved. So that qualified as a money. So there's no limit to the number of ways, there's very little limit to the number of ways you can construct a way of recording and accounting between a group of people without having to resort to
keeping track
bank
of who's doing what for whom.
In a way, that's sort of it. Although you don't have to be who for whom about it. It's really just, how am I doing? Am I giving and getting in my community? Do I spend? I earn? Is it all sort of working out for me? Do I like what's happening? Am I in good shape with my peers, my network, my neighborhood? Do they hire me? And do I find spending the money valuable? If so, yep, that's good. It goes round and round. But I don't have to be. There's no need in the basic community currency for there to be any sort of detailed, he did this with her analysis. It's a very private network we're thinking of. Public in its process, but private in its individual events.
Well, it comes back to it's not money if it doesn't move. I mean, that's the other piece of that's another fundamental is what money does.
Yeah, it's a liberating of events if it is a means of exchange. Now, there's a lot of textbook stuff about money as a means of exchange, a unit of account, it's a store of value. Particularly the store of value is a particular derivation of money as a scarce medium, a control medium, a bulwark against your old age, or
a bag of gold.
The bag of gold. It was very real stuff, and people used to keep money. Now this is a bit of a contradiction if you're thinking that money is a thing that by its movement enables the due process of economic and social life. People buying and selling things from each other keeps the baker and the candlestick maker going. So if you want money as a means of exchange, you focus specifically on what makes it move. Now in the conventional world, the derived, evolved work of the banking industry over the last 2,000 years, the way that coinage and bills and all this happens out, the only way to have that money be valuable is to control very rigorously its limitation. Make sure there's only so many 100 billion pounds, dollars, euros, whatever, in circulation. And it may sound like a hell of a lot, but frankly, if you just look in your own pocket, you'll probably notice there isn't a hell of a lot of money there. And that's the way the game works, is aggregate, there may be loads of it sloshing around, but personally, how are you doing? Do you got a lot? And most of us would say, damn, don't have much. Because the function of a commodity money like that is that some people will get richer, and as they do, everybody else will get poorer. And that's the way that game is basically played. Zero-sum competition. I'll fight with you and everybody else for my slice. Now, of course, if I've got a large slice, it's nice to save it, because you never know when you might be short of it. It's particularly nice if when you save it, you make more money by renting it to people and so on. So all these consequences of a monopoly currency lead us to the problem that it's trying to save value as well as create exchange, and it can't do both very well.
So when you're talking about monopoly money, you're talking about conventional government-issued money, central authority, good to pay taxes with, that sort of thing.
Yes, I should be more specific. I should say monopoly play money, or monopoly game money, or the monopoly money of the Federal Reserve of the United States, or the Bank of Canada, or whatever. But yes, those are monopolistic monetary issue. The three rules of money. It's got to move. It has to be scarce for the moving of a national currency, for the currency to be strong inside the nation and good for foreign exchange. It can't inflate out of its own existence, so they must keep its limited supply. So they create it, we compete for it. That's the rule. There's no way around that, and never will be. So I don't even ever want to bother talking about the problems or addressing those problems.
Talk about that.
No, we're not going to talk about that at all.
We're
talking around it, but we're not going to talk about it. It's hopeless. You can't fix it. Even if you were Alan Greenspan, whoever he is. I saw him on TV the other day. It was amazing. He was interviewed and asked about how the economy was controlled. He's just got a $24 million advance on his book, The Age of Confusion or Turbulence or something. But all he said was that he had no idea how to manage the economy. and in fact, he knew even less in a way than when he started 50 years ago. So that's great. That's very useful. But he's right. He's dead right. He has no idea what he's doing.
Well, nobody has any idea. It
can't be handled. And it isn't going to be changed, and the power brokers are huge, and all of us who may be interested in community currencies at any rational level know that there's no point going there, because there's nothing to said. Too many institutions, establishments, vested interests, habits to change in the time that we have available. So we're not interested in that. We're just interested in money that moves around inside communities, because that's the sort of money that we can create in appropriate and sufficient supply to make our localized economies, our network economies, our sectoral economies productive, effective, stable, fulfilling, generating wealth both for us as individuals and for the commonwealth of that community. And that's very simply achieved by having money that goes round and round inside communities rather than what we depend upon now, money that just goes through.
Well, this is money that comes from us.
Yeah.
And it circulates within these networks, communities, as you say, whereas the other stuff flows through. And as I like to say, like shit through a goose.
Yes. Or grease through a goose.
No, shit through a goose. Can't we say shit on Blog Talk Radio? Is there something wrong with that, do you think?
No, it's just it's the goose I feel sorry for. It's not a hard enough life as it does. Anyway,
so what we were talking about is the fact that community currencies come from us. We create them as needed, where needed, when needed.
Well, the simplest point is this idea that it's just an accountability that's accepted within a group of people or businesses or or any group that decides to form a community currency for itself, they're just agreeing that they mean $1 and they trade around each other. You pick the measure, and that's about it. Okay, we've got a local dollar now, or we've got $1 for the software writers of East London, or whatever. Well, it'd be a pound, of course, or euro, or something.
Well, let's start with something simple like the neighborhood child care network.
Well, that one would be very simple, because you'd count it by the unit of the hour and the child. The neighborhood child care network would be probably, if I looked after your 3 kids for 3 hours, that's 9 units. You look after my 2 kids for 6 hours, that's 12 units.
Unless they're particularly cantankerous and they're worth more.
Well, yeah, some kids can carry a premium rate.
Require more, or let's be a little more serious, require more care, more...
Perhaps more people.
Strenuous care, let's say.
Yeah, they can be, special needs.
Yeah, handicapped, etc.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there can be risk factors. There can be skill levels required of the support. So. But
in any case, those are the details that are negotiated by the people that within that network that want to use that currency with each other. Yeah. And basically it's a mutual credit system where accounts start at 0
and go up and down, because if I'm the first person to use the service and you have my 2 kids for 4 hours, I go down 8 and you go up 8. And that's how it starts. That's all there is to it. It just keeps on doing that in many ways, many times. Now, that's a simple form of self-balancing and, in most circumstances, self-regulating closed-loop community currency. It's just
we should mention that you are the designer developer of one of the original mutual credit systems, the LETSystems. So you do know a fair bit about this business.
Well, I think there's that which we need to know, I know about. What I know is on the page openmoney.org/way/diff.html. And a much easier
URL to remember is lets.net, which is the index of websites. And you can find your there. Sorry?
There are links to all of our sites there, and that will take you to most of the good places. But the core of the analysis by which all my work stands, and the work of those people who work with me, many of them, is entirely based upon what is on that page, openmoney.org/way/diff.html, because that's where we have the breakdown of the characteristics of money as a general phenomenon and how those are reflected in its mainstream application, on which we're so familiar, and where it is increasingly being represented in the community form, which has both a strong history behind it. Community currencies have existed in different ways for many, many years, many centuries. The new facility of Internet, however, makes the proliferation of these currencies rather more realistic and immediate. Now, in this little grid, 3 by 3, the central column, the in general, and the 3 rows, the does row, the is row, and the from row, we can look at what money does, what it is, and where it's from in general. We can look at it in the mainstream, and we can look at it in community. But where it always starts from is right in the middle. What is the form? What is the nature of money? And our premise for all of the discussion is that money is information. that it isn't a store of value in itself. It is not a piece of gold. It does not pretend to be a piece of gold. Money is more like a degree centigrade or an inch or a gram than it is a thing of value in itself. A gram could be thought of as a gram of sand or a gram of gold or a gram of fresh air. What's the value of the gram? That's not the point. The gram is a measure. The inch is a measure. The degree centigrade is a measure. And a dollar or a euro or a yen, these are just measures for how we count our time and value. Just measures. And the measure doesn't have to be valuable in itself. That's the key point. The measure is.
And as you say, it's absurd to be without a measure.
Yeah, it's like saying
trying to build that house on the other side of town, and you don't have any inches.
Yeah, you've got all the tools, you've got all the gear, you've got all the capacities, you've got everything you need. You're just short of measure. Well, that's how our world seems to struggle along at the moment. All over the world, we see people who've got skills, people who've got resources, people who've got needs, people who want work, people who want to work with each other. People want to get things done. There's huge things that have got to be done, and they're not going to go away, the ones that really matter. And everybody says, but we don't have the money. We can't afford it. There's nothing in the budget for this. There's no money from that. Well, that's inevitable if we're using conventional, legal tender, bank-issued, conventional money. It's just inevitable. So don't start whining about it. Deal with it. And how we deal with it...
Well, come on. What am I going to whine about if I don't whine about not having money?
Oh, I'm sure we can think of something. I'm sure we'll find something to whine about. But it needn't be the lack of money. We can deal with it. Let's do it.
Well, the reality, of course, is that it's a lot more serious than whining for a lot of people. This is serious stuff. I mean, there are people who are homeless, who don't have enough food to eat, that don't get medical care, all kinds of things because they are poor, because they don't have money. So
because the organization of the game is dominated by this monetary structure, which is itself degenerate. I don't mean morally degenerate. I mean the idea that money has to be a thing of value and you have to keep it scarce to have it do anything useful is a self-contradictory, dysfunctional mess. Especially when we've got things to do and we need an organizational process, an organizational medium, an organizational system that is effective, benign, equitable, that's transparent, that's easy to use, that basically matches the task. We have a very, very complex society, and we have a very, very stupid money system. I mean, I don't mean just lacking in subtlety. I mean pig-headedly stupid. Conventional money is really stupid.
And dangerous.
And dangerous, destructive, exploitative, coercive, damaging. Prone to so many evils. So what we want is money that's nice.
It's important to understand why, we need to understand why money needs attention. Because people tend to think that somebody has money, they're rich, Soros or Gates or something. They're greedy, and therefore therein lies the problem with our societies. The rich are greedy, and the poor suffer.
I don't think you even have to have the rich being greedy. You see, it's basically that money is a greed pumper pusher. Even the nicest guys act like they're greedy.
Well, that's my point.
Having money means
everybody wants the most for the least because of the money. That's what I didn't say that very well. It's important to understand what money is and what it does, conventional money, what it is and what it does. Because otherwise we focus in on these other rationales for how things work.
Yeah, the simplest way, I think, to look at the problem is that if you've got a standard, conventional, normal banking type money, it will naturally separate into rich, not quite so rich, less rich, all the way down to the poor. And we're in that lineup, and everybody is pretty keen to move up the lineup rather than down. I don't see many people opting deliberately to be poor or poorer than they currently are. Usually we think, this is about as poor as I want to be. I don't want to be poorer than this.
Well, there are the voluntary simplicity folks.
Oh, good for them. They can go for it. But in general, throughout the world, most of us say, I'm as poor as I can afford to be. I don't want to get poorer than this. Can't afford it. Because it costs to be poor. It costs in a very real way. Mm-hmm. Anyway, people all want a bit more, because more is better than less. It's good to have a cushion, a nest egg, a bit of padding. Acquisition and protection becomes a necessary offset for the fear that this form of money induces. We live in a society of fear.
Because it can disappear overnight.
Well, and you never know where it's coming from. I mean, you had a job and then you didn't, or the market for this thing collapsed, or the machine broke and we couldn't afford to fix it, so our plant died, I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong, and in a world where there's no connection between how the money comes to you, then you spend it, it's gone. There's no connection between where it went and where it's coming from, where you get it from. That's a critical problem. We are left with the devil and the deep blue sea. We're going to trickle down of the money to us, and we're going to pouring it away to the many places we spend it, and there's no actual connection between where we send it to and where we hope it comes from.
Well,
it's like
and therein lies the addiction.
Yes.
It's intermittent.
Yeah. It's intermittent, it's unreliable, it becomes a space of superstition. We believe certain things about money, but they're really more like prayers or aspirations. Anyway, enough of what's wrong with that stuff.
That's right.
The fact is, it's not around. You see, that's the biggest. I mean, when people say, "Why do you think we need money?" Look around, mate. There isn't enough around here. There isn't enough to get this done, to get that done. Nobody can find a way to interact. We're all sitting there looking at each other thinking, I'd like to buy what he's got. If I had money, I would, or whatever. Well, let's do it. We create our money inside our community, and then our products, our skills, our services, our used goods, old bikes, old cars, old houses, who knows what, can become part of the local money, the network money, the community money, and we can get on with all sorts of things. So that's the first question. If there's no money around here, why not have some more? Go back to the inches that you didn't have to build the house. If you couldn't find any inches, you just make up another inch tape. You make another measuring device. Well, same thing here. Yeah. Well, yeah. Don't change the subject or the measure. But anyhow,
okay,
yeah, it's all about measuring.
Take a quick break here, just a short break here, just to regroup and let people know that if they are listening to this, they're listening to a podcast, they're listening live at the moment and could be listening to a podcast later of Open Money on Blog Talk Radio. I'm Ernie Yacub, and the other guy is Michael Linton. And we're talking about the fundamentals of money. So I just thought I'd throw that in there because if somebody came in 5 minutes into the show, they wouldn't have a clue what the hell we were talking about.
Oh, I don't.
Unless they were on the website.
Should worry too much about that. I mean, if they came in 5 minutes, they'd listen to 10 seconds and leave. Unless they know what this is for, it's obscure, and it's limited. But you see, this is the beauty of podcasting through the Internet. You go long tail. You see, it doesn't matter that 98.4% of the human race listening to this thing would say, oh, I don't care, and got off it. Because it's not the 98.4 we're talking for at the moment. We're looking for the 1% who are interested to think about what money is, what open money is, what community currencies are, how they can be applied in their communities, what are the technologies for getting this thing going as a real social, economic process in your world. These are the people we want to talk to. And that's what the long tail of the Internet, the access to the long tail. So all you long-tailed monetary people out there, hang in, listen in, call in, type in. You can join our chat line and say, I'd really like to know what you're talking about in this or that or the other, and we'll say things.
Or email us. Through Michael at openmoney.org or Ernie at openmoney.org.
So there are many ways to reach us. You could send us a letter in the post.
You can Google us.
You
Google LETSystems.
Yes, we're always reachable. Now, I think this one as an opening discussion of the reasons and wherefores for money, for community currency, doesn't need to go much. Function?
I mean, looking at the function line in that chart.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked about the competitive nature of conventional money, and we've talked about what money actually does, and it provides measure.
But we haven't talked about the collaboration, have we?
No, we haven't. That's what I was going to say, is that in community, it's about collaboration.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? And it does come from the fact that what makes a community currency possible is various levels of agreement amongst its users. One of them is we agree we're going to use this money. The other one is we agree it has this measure. It's measured as a dollar, or it counts as a euro, or it's measured in time.
Or hours.
Yeah, in time or in kilowatt hours. It's measured by electrical units of energy. Who knows what forms we'll be using in a few years. But within each currency, that is the primary collaboration. Or we've agreed this is what this little game we're playing is and how it works. But the other part is that there's nothing coercive within these soft community currencies. Nothing at all like the coercive power of a conventional money, where you got it, I don't, you have control over me in various ways. Everybody does have something of a price, or pretty close to it, and we are bought and sold, often against our will, or under duress by the conventional money. But inside a community currency world, nobody is fundamentally poor. Nobody is fundamentally rich. Nobody has any control over anybody else. So the buying and selling of time, of products, of the organization of events that is achieved using community money are intensely collaborative. I don't mean by intensely that we have to struggle hard to collaborate. I mean rather that at the very core of the whole process, nothing happens unless people want it to. I'm not going to do something for community money that really is breaking my back and using a lot of my time and putting me under stress, because I don't need community money. I have community money.
Now that needs a bit of an explanation, I'd say, Michael.
Yes, it's a bit like when I'm standing here and breathing quite easily. It's because I know that there's air out there, so that as I breathe out, I'm going to breathe in. I'm going to breathe out, I'm going to breathe in. I'm not concerned about, should I let go of this air, because God knows where the next in-breath is around. Well, in conventional money, that's our world. We're worried about the breath. We really are. Think about it. With this money, we're not. With money in a community, I can be positive, I can be negative, I can be at the midline. So I can, as it were, breathe in, earn some of the money, or I can breathe out, spend the money. It comes, it goes, because it doesn't go away in the same way as the usual money does.
It just exists. It is.
It's in this sort of cocoon of interaction. I'm in a community of, say, 20,000 people. If I spend cash, the 20,000, no matter how friendly they all are, they're going to spend it with other people outside. It dissipates away. It's like a spin dryer.
Well, first of all, it's going to go to the bank, number one.
Well,
and then it's
not particularly. It goes to the store. It goes to the telephone.
That's what I mean.
Company.
It goes to the bank because the store's got to pay the bank for, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, if you look at it like the smoke ring sort of thing, like I stand in the middle of my world, or all around me are the people that I deal with. Some of them that I spend money with, some that spend money with me. If I think, first of all, that I'm passing out the dollars, the bucks to these people, those people, these are the people I'm spending with, then I may be hoping, in some sense, well, actually, no, I'm not even hoping. I know that having spent money with them does not necessarily mean any of the people who would spend with me, even if they're also grouped around me in this image, the various employers, the various people I sell to, the various people who send me money in the mail, all these people in my world, they're also they're the source of my income. Now, do I think that my expenditures have an effect on the financial state of the people who are spending money on me? I'm imagining it if I do. It's absurd. But if this is a community currency, then a very simple form of not magic happens. That is, that when I spend money, the community money, in my community of 20,000, I may only deal with a few hundred people. But in that spending, I pump money into this sort of smoke ring out there, this vortex, this spinning, surrounding space, where the money that I've put out bounces around inside that world, and it does increase the spending power of the people who use my services, who would want my services.
Well, given that it's a money that's enclosed, it's enclosed within a network, it's bound to come back.
There's nowhere else for it to go.
So it just goes round and round. The other stuff goes through. The other stuff, the conventional normal money flows through, like I said earlier, like shit through goose. And this stuff just goes round and round. And I've heard
its function is
convivial money.
Yeah, it's an oscillation. It causes things to bounce and move. It's an agitation, if you like, a benign agitation. And it's persistent, because once you've started the bouncing, the oscillation, the up and down, the in and out, the to and fro between people, it probably won't go on forever, which is nice.
Which is a good place to pause for a moment, and we've got about 15 minutes left. And we do want to talk a little bit about tomorrow's show, because we are going to be doing this on a regular basis. We're moving it to 10 o'clock in the morning, though. So tomorrow, Thursday, 10 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time, and Friday at 10 o'clock, I guess, eh?
It seems to work. It's a good week. We're going to have 3 shows. And tomorrow's show is going to deal much more with the pragmatics of what do we do with this. Now,
what's it for?
Yeah, what's in this for us? Why would we? What's the point? What's going to happen that's better because we do this or do that?
Yeah. How does it deal? How can somebody use this to deal with problems like homelessness?
Mm-hmm. Problems like bread on the table. Problems like finance the school extension. Problems like hire more staff at the local business.
Yeah, and not just problems. That's problems. There are also the opportunities, like people on Facebook, networks on Facebook, for instance.
That's a big area.
Various virtual currencies.
All the networks of possibility. Contemplate the range. It is truly limitless. So,
and that's what we're going to start exploring that tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning.
But I think it's useful segue between the two contexts, the context of theory and what's open money and why currencies, community currencies, how do they float, how are they an expression of money as information. The segue from that into what do we do with them is the multiplicity. We do many things with this, because currencies can be seen in many ways. There's no limit to the formations that we can apply to community currencies, and indeed, if it was a question of a very limited variety of designs, there's only 3, let's try this, let's try that, and let's try another. If there are only 3 viable processes, I think we'd have a lot more trouble. But fortunately, there are thousands of viable things you can do with community currency systems.
Fundamentally, it's like any community, any network, any association, any grouping can have its own community currency.
And that people will be in many of these currencies rather than being a sort of tribal member of one at a time.
That's right. So, for instance, in the Comox Valley where we live, there will be the Comox. There is a Comox Valley dollar. There, Courtney, Cumberland, Comox, and then of course, how many church congregations are there in this valley that will have their own currency? How many schools will have their own currencies?
There'll be a seniors currency. There'll be a women's currency. There'll be a currency for different cultural networks. The Greeks, the Vietnamese, who knows? There'll be currencies for people who follow the local hockey team. There'll be currencies for people who don't follow hockey. Who knows? There's no limit to what you can do.
And of course, there are virtual, and then it goes beyond that to regional, national, global interests, stamp collectors of the world currency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fair trade. Proper fair trade.
So anyway, that's the issue, is multi-currencies. People, businesses, institutions will have accounts in numerous currencies. Maybe only one at first, but if you're going to have one, like a business might have a business, several business-to-business currencies.
And perhaps several regional currencies that it supports participation in, so that it's able to draw on different customer base. I think the core issue, and I keep coming back to this, and I have been doing for something like 20 years now, and the reason I come back to
25.
The multiplicity is something we started to emphasize 22, 23 years ago. We said, one is not enough. In fact, one is self-defeating in so many ways. So many problems with doing a single so-called alternative or complementary currency. Both are very degenerative words. They are wrong. And the singularity...
and alternative is usually the way to look at these things. We will have an alternative in this community to the almighty dollar.
And the theory then is
that territory is
behind one thing.
On.
We we've all got to agree on this. It's like a political thing. Let's all be left wing, or let's all be right wing, and let's pull together or something. This is not the way community currencies can be, and indeed are. So the multiplicity is the key. Were it not embedded in the form of the money, were it not absolutely explicit to its nature and behavior, we have a hell of a problem. Fortunately, it is. We don't have to do anything to make open money equitable, accessible, to make it social, to make it have variety. That just is the way it is. We have to find ways of expressing it and optimizing our use of these tools. Just because there is every tool in the world doesn't mean you've got the right ideas about what to do with them. It's another level.
Well, and
at least
I think
we can do it.
Tool. I think the word tool is an important part of this, because these are tools that people can use. But what this brings to mind is that what we did say we were going to talk about was the fundamentals of LETSystems, community currencies, and open money. We haven't really talked much about LETSystems, other than that it's a mutual credit system, and basically everybody starts at zero, accounts start at zero. But we haven't really talked about open money.
Well, open money is the space. It's almost like saying gravity. You can say gravity. Well, what gravity? Where? What do we do with it? Well, who owns it? Same sort of questions. Open money is a situation, a state. It's an observation of reality. It's not a question of opinion. Money can be created by consenting groups of persons and organizations as they choose. That is so. Now that's open money. And it's got a little more to say than that. Now, how that is formulated in particular instances is another issue, and that is where the community currency network, CCNet, is a design proposition, a design and propagation of what is essentially a namespace, rather similar to the space of emails and email lists. At present, we are familiar with having an email address, and that we know allows us to participate in such networks as email lists, where we talk all about horses in this list and mushrooms in that, and roof design in the other. Now, not everybody wants to know about roof design, so the ones who do roof design. Not everybody wants to know about horses, but those who do use the HorseNet. Well, it's the same sort of thing. We're going to have a money address in the CC network. It'll look a lot like an email address, Michael at or of cv.bc.ca for the Comox Valley and British Columbia.Canada. Others would be EHB of Chatham.ny.us. It's like an email address in form. It'll be geographical for most of us at the beginning, for reasons that will become clear as we get older and wiser. But with that name, a money address, just like you have email boxes, and you can use that email box to participate in these networks, you will have a money box, a virtual money box, like a virtual email box. And that virtual money box is good for your transactions in whichever currency nets you choose to join, as the email for whichever email lists you wish to join. So it's about having
in essence, you're talking about open money network, open money net.
Talking about the naming of the parts, the primary name being, what is your account? What is your name? What is your identity in this world, this virtual world of virtual money? So the first thing you want is an account name. which you get at the website. And the account name is probably something quite close to your own because of the differentiation across geography. There may not be 42 people with your exact name in your street, and so your address can be quite easy. Joe Smith, for instance, of.
But we're talking initially here about real identities.
Yes, that's why we're going geographic, because for people to trade realistically and intelligibly in this, they're going to have some confidence in who's who and whether this is a real system or is it a bunch of idiots on virtual games, Facebook, Second Life. There will be an awful lot of strange behavior. There will be frauds, scams. There will be pseudonyms. There will be people masquerading as other people. No. The mainstream of development of community currencies as practical tools for our real-world activities will be localized physically, at least for the initial stages. It won't stay just at that level, and it will always have that level. Nobody's going to abandon it. It's going to start locally with people we know in interactions and transactions and events that we understand and wish to have happen. Real things will happen with community currencies on a local level. And that's why the names will be, first of all, local, and the transactions will be in localized currencies predominantly at the beginning.
Because essentially we're talking about reputation currencies, and the smaller the networks, the better people know each other, have worked with each other for any length of time, the more vibrant and
I think it's more
the system will be.
That's where the emergent understanding of the viability of these processes will emerge first. Most people will approach this quite realistically, quite properly, with considerable caution. And we want them to do that. We don't want anybody messing around in open money, community currencies, and thinking that they found the get-rich scheme of the century, or that it's just think and grow rich, or the world now owes me a living, or anything silly like that. But there will.
And you're going to have to hold that thought. This is not a quick rich scheme, and because we've only got 2 minutes left.
Yeah, well,
we got to get out of here.
I'm just going to wind it up, and I've got another minute and 35 seconds. I should back to.
Are you going to wind it up then?
Yeah. Okay. What was I talking about? I was talking about the
emergent viability.
Yeah, you see, it's not that the reputation that has to be built so much as we have to see that this works, and we will do that in the place where we can most verify. So reputation will be checked most in the local space and found substantial. And that's why
we've got 1 minute left. We've got to get out of here. This is Open Money on Blog Talk Radio. My name's Ernie Yacub. His name is Michael Linton, and we're going to be back here tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning so we can talk more about this stuff if anybody out there is listening. And if you have listened to this, thank you for listening. And if you didn't, listen in sometime later. Anytime, we're going to be here for a while, right?
Right. Regularly. Thanks, Ernie. Catch you later. Bye, guys.
See you, Michael. Find us on lets.net or email us. It's mwl@openmoney.org or ernie@openmoney.org. I'd love to hear from anybody out there. If you did hear any of this or listen to any of it, we could use some critiquing. We've got 59 seconds remaining. And yeah, we would love to hear some feedback, because we're serious about doing this and we want to keep doing it, and we want to be intelligible. So yeah, let us know or what didn't make sense. If you have any questions, perhaps, and that will certainly help us to design or plan or get into the the other shows that we're going to do. But they're all going to be about open money. Tomorrow's show is going to be about what you can do with it. How to make money with open money, how to deal with homelessness, poverty, hunger, and all those things that we would really like to deal with and do something real about. So that's it. Goodbye, all. Thanks for listening.